Hi, and welcome to Iggy's Toy Parade and Soldier Review. This is your host, Iggy. Well, guys, tonight I think I'm going to share with you these figures made by a company called Cameo, and it was under a line of figures called the British Empire series, or more precisely, the Empire. I'm sorry, I'm shaking here. The Empire series. And these were released between the years I believe 1974 and 1980 or 78. And they were sculpted by a man named Ray Lamb. And they represent here four different campaigns during the British Empire years. And first up, we have a figure from 1879. And this is a figure from, I believe, the second Afghan war that the British fought in Afghanistan. And that was from 1878 to 1880. And this figure represents a cavalryman from 1878. And you'll notice that he's starting to show signs of what the later British Empire uniforms looked like. He's wearing a khaki coat and a pith helmet that is covered in a khaki cloth. Now, if you know a little bit about the Zulu War, they went into combat wearing red coats and blue trousers, and they would take tea and stain their white helmets so that they wouldn't reflect so much sunlight. So this figure represents 1879. Oh, I should point out that this figure was painted for me by my brother Ron. And you've heard me talk about him quite a bit. He doesn't collect toy soldiers or anything like that, but he does kind of like these things. So we're going to turn it around so you can see. And that is a feature that many of the cavalrymen in the British Army, they had this. I think David Niven in his autobiography mentioned that he had one of these and he filled it with condoms. And he was hoping he would never get caught in an inspection with those in there. He was quite a randy fella if you read his biography, but it is very interesting. He was in the British Army in the early 1930s. Now, the second one is of the Gordon Relief Expedition, which was 1884 to 1885. It took them quite a while to get from Egypt to Khartoum in the Sudan. And by the time they finally got there, General Charles Gordon had been killed the day before, I think, they got there. And he was stabbed with a spear, and then they stabbed him in the back, and then they chopped him up, cut off his head, and put it on a spike as a trophy. And this is a fellow from the Camel Corps, not to be mistaken with the caramel corn, which is something entirely different. Now, they did make a movie of this, which was quite good, starring Charlton Heston, whose British accent was quite bad. In fact, the first scenes of the movie, they show him speaking with a really bad British accent, and then for the remainder of the movie, he just talks in his regular voice because it was so bad. I don't know why they insist on making British historical movies and put Americans in it. They did that with the Four Feathers. And man, I didn't like that. It was a TV show starring Beau Bridges. Did you see the remake of the original Four Feathers in 1939? Was pretty good. I liked it a lot. Uh, they made several remakes, and there's one that they made starring Heath Ledger, and Goldie Hawn's daughter played the lead female character, and her British accent was horrific. Hello, Harry. No, that's the wrong accent for the character she was playing. It was just dreadful. But anyway, some people can do it, some people cannot. It is easier for Brits to do American accents than it is for Americans to do British accents. Many Americans don't do it too well. But you'll notice here that he's wearing corduroy pants and with leather inserts. And of course, he's wearing puttees with his ankle boots. And he's got a bandolier. And he's wearing a gray coat and what looks like it looks similar to a Wolseley helmet. I don't know if it's actually a Wolseley helmet, but it looks very. So you'll notice the difference between this helmet and this one. This is like the style of the 1870s. And this takes place in 1884, and he's a member of the Camel Corps. And I'm going to turn him around so that I hope this is not blurry. You see the detail in the bandolier. My brother did an excellent job painting these. The buttons, and I wouldn't be able to do any of this. Looks like he has a wooden canteen. You got a haversack there. Okay, now this next figure is one of my storage casualties. You'll notice here that his hand is missing, which is really weird because I had these figures in bubble wrap and then stored 2 figures per bag of a envelope that was lined with bubble wrap and then placed in a box that was filled with shredded paper, and I still had problems. When something's in storage long enough, it's just going to get broken. That's all there is to it. You can see here the detail that my brother did on his face, his eyes. I like this guy. He looks cool. This guy is really cool. This one too. He did a very fine job. Now he's wearing corduroy pants and a khaki jacket. This would have been the Gordon Relief Expedition was in 1884, so they hadn't quite made it to the full-on khaki uniform of the Boer War, but you can see that it's gradually appearing here. And he's got what was a quilted padding that they put on their helmet to protect their necks from the sun. Although I would think that would cut down on air circulation and probably cause heat stroke. But this is what they wore on their helmet, the idea being to protect themselves from the sun. And you can see here his bandolier and haversack, and I think he has a pistol. I love this uniform. I wouldn't mind having this. This is pretty cool. Here's his bugle. This is his bugle, and this is his hand. Look at the work my brother did on the cord there and the tassels. He did a really good job. It really saddens me that this has been broken. This one here is from the Naval Brigade. And the Naval Brigade consisted of Royal Marines and sailors. And this is from the Second South African War, or the Anglo-Boer War. And in the First Boer War, that they fought with the Dutch settlers in South Africa, the British pretty much had their asses handed to them. And at the beginning of the Boer War, the same thing happened again. Initially, the Australians and Canadians said, "Hey, we'll help you out." And the Britain said, "No, we don't need you." Well, of course, as the reverses started to pile up, they were more than happy to take the services of the Australians and the Canadians to fight the Boers, because initially they were doing quite poorly against them. So this is of the Naval Brigade, and of course he's suffering some injuries from, I hope this is in focus, because for me, guys, this is really blurry. His bayonet, you can see here, has gotten, I didn't want to straighten it because I was really scared I would snap it. And I have no skill at putting these models and things together. But you can see here he did a really nice job. And what really amazed me, I don't know if it's actual lettering, but on his cap, see that? It says something, I can't make it out, but it's incredible detail what I can make out of it. So this would be from the Second Anglo-Boer War, and that would be 1899. And I think that war went on for a couple of years. The war in Afghanistan, what a mess. There was 3 wars the British fought in Afghanistan in 1841, I think it was. And they got slaughtered in that one. There's a famous painting by Lady Elizabeth Butler of Dr. Brindon or whatever his name was. And he was the sole survivor of all the people that had left Kandahar. Was it Kandahar? Or was it a encampment near Kabul? Anyway, 4,500 British soldiers and 12,000 camp followers and a bunch of Indian Army troops left Afghanistan, and the Afghans sniped at them and attacked them until they were all killed or captured. And only one man made it out alive. So why would you want to get involved with that? Well, they did, and they won the second war, if you can call it winning. And then there was another war in 1919. And most of the wars there between the British and the Afghans was because Britain was concerned about the involvement of Russia in Afghanistan, and they were concerned because of the Indian Empire. They didn't want the Russians encroaching upon their influences there. But it's pretty gnarly, and when you read about it, you're like, oh my God, who would want to get involved in this place? But hello, America. And our exit from Afghanistan was way worse than, well, not the first Afghan war, but the second one. The British exit there was much smoother than what we did. The Camel Corps, of course, is very colorful. The riding camels is very unique and unusual. Camels, of course, not being too common throughout the world. I think there's some camels in China, isn't there? Because they have deserts out there. They tried to introduce a camel corps into the United States Army, I think in the 1850s, but it didn't work out. The program was dropped, so they never pursued that. I'd like to have my picture taken in this uniform, but I would need to lose some weight first because I'm too chubby for that. So there you go, guys. I do have a story I can tell about this. which should lose me a couple more subscribers. Every time I tell a story, I have to realize that I'm going to lose about 3 or 4 subscribers. I think altogether I've lost between 30 and 40 subscribers now. So Iggy is not going to be leaving a lasting legacy, I'm afraid. I had this girlfriend briefly. Her name was Allison, and she came over to my place, and I was very proudly showing her these figures. And I put one of them in her hand. I said, "Feel how heavy this is." And she started to shake. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And she started to shake. And in a trembling voice, she said, "Richard, you're scaring me." And I said, "What's wrong?" "Men don't have toy soldiers." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck. You gotta be kidding." And these survived my first wife, Tara. She insisted that I throw them out because men don't have things like this. This is not manly. And look, guys, I'm not a macho guy. I'm not manly Superman or whatever you want to call it. But at least I have enough testosterone to tell you that if I like this and you want me to get rid of it, how about I get rid of you? That's not why we broke up. She was crazy and a cheater, but that's another story. Iggy had a habit of picking low-hanging fruit. Oh boy, I'm going to get in trouble with this video. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you. Again, let's repeat what we have here. These were made by a company called Cameo. They're, I believe, in a 90 millimeter size. They're sort of similar to the size of a Star Wars figure by Hasbro or Kenner. And they called it the Empire series. And they were sculpted by Ray Lamb. Now I'm going to show you the back of, or the bottom rather, and it looks like he hand carved the information into the bottom of each of these. All right, so what's it say there? It says 1974 Cameo Empire series, and then it has his signature, Ray Lamb. I like it when figures are identified because when the packaging is gone, then you know, 20, 30, 40 years go by, you don't remember. At least I don't. I remember these came in a white box, and you had to order them. There was no online service at that time, but it was mail order, and you would find the ad for it in model magazines or history magazines and such, and you'd mail away for it, and it came in a white box with a black and white label on it identifying what it was. So there you go. There's some of the oldest figures in my collection. The oldest things I have in my collection, apart from my original Civil War soldiers from Marx, is my Marx Battleground playset that I got for Christmas in 1977. And then I later bought these, starting, I believe I got my first one in 1979 and the last one in 1980. So there you have it. Why don't we, let's see, last time I think we went for an ice cream cone. How about if we go for fish and chips? I haven't had that in a long time. There used to be a series of a franchise of stores called H.S. Salt Fish and Chips. And a friend of mine from high school worked there, and I walked in, and she said, "You don't want to eat here." And I said, "Well, why not?" "They don't change the oil." And I'm like, oh. Anyway, she gave the food to me for free, and I'm not surprised. that they went out of business shortly after that. But for quite a while, their shops were rather ubiquitous. And but unfortunately, like many things, it's gone the way of the dinosaur. But let's go get some fish and chips. However, I do not want British style soda because they just take it right off the shelf behind the register. They hand it to you, and I'm looking at it like, this isn't even cold. And they said, why would you want it cold, mate? And I'm like, oh, that's different. But every culture is different. And I think in Europe, they don't care for iced drinks. At least years ago, they did not. I don't know if that's the case now, because everything changes. All right, guys, that's all I got for you this time. Thank you for coming along. This is your host, Iggy, saying thank you for subscribing. For those of you who have, if you haven't, why not give it a shot? And hit the notification bell, hit the like button. That makes me feel good when I see those. And leave a comment. What you think of these figures? I'm sorry it's shaking so badly. Usually I film videos sitting down at the kitchen table. I'm actually sitting, not sitting, but standing in front of my bookcase. You can see here. Those are Germans, so I didn't want to show you that. As you can see here, there's Wilhelm the First. I think that's his son next to him there. And there's Bismarck and, who was the famous general? Why do I do this, guys? My memory is so bad lately. I think he's the guy that came up with, this is the Franco-Prussian War, by the way. You see the Prussians advancing in the background there. It's a nice painting. I like it. Anyway, that's all I got for you, and I'll catch you next time, okay? Thank you, guys. Take care of yourselves.